Right, welcome along guys, welcome to another how-to video working alongside MX5 parts, and today we are installing a set of
Gaz GHX.
Right, let's get to it. Okay, so we're going to install these shocks. So Ashlee has, what have you got? What have we got here to install, Ash? Give a rundown on what is required to install a set of Gaz.
Right, so we've got sockets. We've got a 21, we've got a 17, two 14s, a 12mm. We've got your half-inch drive, breaker bar, extension, spanners. You've got a 21, 17, and 14, and we won't show it in this video, but you need a 10mm to remove the under tray as well. So I've got a torch and a whirly dirly.
Yeah, we have already gone. Oh, sorry, I missed that. What was that?
Your favourite beverage as well.
Yeah. Well, don't
It's cold.
spill it.
It's cold.
So let's have a look at the car. So we have already undone and removed the under tray. So just a quick run through of what we're going to remove, Ash, before you actually go ahead and do it.
So we're going to be removing the anti-roll bar drop link. We're going to be removing this top bolt that runs through here. To get that all that way out, you have to lower one of the anti-roll bar bolts as well, because it just doesn't quite clear. Also need to do the bolt down here on the bottom of the shock, and then it will also be the top mounts as well.
Okay, let's get to it.
So what I always start with is the drop link. It's easiest, and it's...
So while you're doing that, Ash, we did actually forget to talk about one tool that essentially that you will need for this job, is spring compressor. But I guess you didn't run through that because you can't fit the actual you can't fit the spring compressor on your trolley because it is floor standing. So that is our spring compressor. Now you can most people at home, DIY mechanics and stuff, you'll have the ones where you've got the two hooks either side with a thread, and you put them either side of the spring and wind the threads in and it pulls the spring down. That would do. Oh no.
That'll do.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, cool.
I'm doing the drop link. 14mm bolt, nut either side.
If you're doing this on a Mark II, unbolting those drop links is a little bit more challenging. Yeah, you may need an angle grinder to actually cut them off.
Generally on a Mark II, if you're just changing the shocks and the springs, I would in fact drop the entire anti-roll bar down and the drop links attached, because very rarely do the drop links come off in one piece on a Mark II. Just the design of them, they rust up and they don't come off. So.
You can get away without taking those drop links off, but it just makes it a little bit harder.
Sometimes you need to back them up on and off because everything here gets very rusty, being it's on the bottom of an MX5.
Sure do. Okay, that's the anti-roll bar drop link bolt out. What are you going to do next, Ash?
Shock bolt, 17mm. Squirt of your favourite lube. Nut and a washer on that side. Just been glued on the wonders here. Should now be moving in there.
As you can see, Ash's got a bit of movement on there now.
Wind that 12mm anti-roll bar bolt out of the way. It's just the back edge here. one doesn't need to come all the way out, it just needs to go down further enough that if you feel on the back it's low enough that it doesn't poke out the back of the captive nut.
So Ashlee is literally just loosening these off so he can get that long 21mm bolt out the way, because with them bolted in, it hits the top.
That's a big 21.
Also, at the beginning of the video, we also didn't note that we had actually removed the wheel.
I imagine most people know how to do that.
They may not have, Ash.
Perhaps this video isn't for them.
Show everyone how big that bolt is. There we go. That's what keeps your front upper control arm in place.
It should be a wiggle. That should all come apart. Torch falls on the floor. So that's everything on the bottom of the shock. Got them now loose.
As you can see, the shock's there, waiting to come out. So, one more step in there, Ash, and that's to loosen up the top mount bolts, isn't it? Securing it. Which can be found. So, there's your top of the shock, your top mount. So it's this bolt here, and that bolt in there.
What I do at this stage is I pop the cap off from here. It should reveal your top mount nut, and I just like to give it just a quick, like half a turn, just to loosen it up. Easier than having to do it loose in your hand. It's gripped on the thing. That's 17mm in there. Just give it half a turn. You don't want to wind that all off, otherwise bad things will happen.
No, but if you don't have a spring compressor, I suppose you could leave the.
We don't want to. We don't want to be.
If someone hasn't got a spring compressor, they probably
buy a spring compressor is the advice.
It is. But if someone hasn't,
buy a spring compressor is the advice.
You're such a pro, Ash. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna come here. And if everyone's wondering why this car's so low, it's because Ashlee is very short. He's only can just about reach up at the top of the wings right now.
Now it's just a case of wiggling it all so it all comes out.
Are you giving it the wiggle of the jiggle?
Yep. It's just trying to get that all clear of each other. And that's it.
And there we go. One shock is born.
They all have a plastic gasket on top. You want to keep that to hand. Make sure that goes back on. If you forget to put those on, you can sort of get a creaking, groaning noise through the suspension. So keep that safe.
This is. Can I say what this is on a? It's not a rude word, is it? What we call this?
Spring compressor.
No, we call it something else, don't we?
Do we? I've never called it anything other than a spring compressor.
Begins with a P.
It's not a pigmy press.
Here, we can say that.
And that's the press. This is a spring compressor. You're getting confused between tools now, Chris.
I am, aren't I?
Good job. That goes in there, and then you've got to pump it up, don't you know? Pump it up. you pump it up until the spring's no longer touching. And then you can just take that nut on the top all the way.
So obviously if you've got a DIY home spring compressor, you just put one side, one the other side, and you wind them up until again you've got the spring away from the top mount.
And that's all loose. And that can go into retirement.
That's it. So that's what we wanted to retrieve. Top mount, which is where the spring sits in place.
Yep.
Okay, we now need to build the shocks. So Ashley is going to perform that right now, aren't you, Ash?
Yes.
So when you get these gas shocks, at the bottom, actually you can see here it's got two little, what would you say they are, bezels?
Collets.
Collets, yeah, collets is probably the correct word.
Spacers.
Inserts.
Inserts, that's a good one.
So they're in. So take these out, and I like to put a bit of extra grease in there, just for good measure. Which
I'll do that last, because then they'll fall out.
yeah, they might do actually. Yeah. So basically, that's when you're doing these guys. It is important to make sure that these are greased up. If you do not grease these, you can end up with a squeak coming from your suspension. That's it. Springs are labelled up.
Nice and handy.
Yep. Another way to tell when you get these shocks out, and if you mix them up, the long ones are always at the front. So the longest shock fronts, you can tell here that the difference between the two bodies there's quite a difference there. Short ones at the back, long ones at the front. So the spring as well. Sorry, Ash. I was just letting the so you can see the spring is narrower that end to that end. Narrow side goes down onto the body of the shock. Ash, why did you just drop that?
Right, with the gas you get your two washers. You've got a big one and a little one. Their job is, if you look compared to the top mount, it's quite easy. That one goes on the bottom to stop it pulling through the top. And the other one, which is the same size as in there, goes on the top. So you want to make sure that one is on before the top mount goes on. On Mark 1s, the threaded part is actually a D shape. If you look at that and look in there, it's
So it's got a flat.
on one side. It can be once, sometimes on Mark 1s that flat wears off, and that can cause a knock quite often. So. Try and do is to aid you when you go back on the car. If you line where the shock bush would go through like that, you want to line the two bolts on the top mount sort of facing the same direction.
So basically what Ashley's saying, so you've got the where the bolt goes through here. If you bring your finger up here, that's where the studs are. So they're basically in line, and it will, you're right Ash, because it is a bit of a pain if you've got them not lined up.
on these ones it's not so bad.
Not on a normal
where
shot.
we haven't set the height where we haven't set the height up quite yet, the spring's not under that much tension. But on some of them there's quite a lot of tension between the spring and the top mount, and they're quite hard to twist, and when you're sort of trying to wiggle it to get in, and they're pointing one direction, that's pointing the other direction, it can be a real pain to sort of go on. So
Okay.
and then it's just a case of a little bit of lube in there.
What grease is that you're using?
Red. Strawberry flavour. I prefer raspberry myself, but it's all Chris has got, so. I don't rate this syringe very much.
You need some good thumb muscles. Go on.
What is this? I feel like I'm just gonna get it everywhere.
Squeeze it out, Ash. Are you struggling with that?
Why can't I just have this in a pot? This is.
Well, I thought it would be easier. There is a pot here. Look,
Yeah, I'm just gonna use it out of the pot.
I got
instead
the
of
pot.
you and your clever ideas that aren't.
Works for me.
Just a bit of grease on there, nice and easy. No bothering with stupid syringes or anything like that.
It keeps it contained.
Yeah, it's so contained you can't get it out.
Yeah, but now you've got to wipe your gloves.
It's fine. I'd rather wipe my gloves than not get any grease out.
But I don't need to wipe my gloves when I use the syringe. Actually, tell a lie, I do, because I still smear it.
Exactly. So.
But it's just there. I can just use it.
Constructed.
Okay, shop built. Should we fit that bad boy then?
Right, so the plastic gasket from earlier, need to remember to put that on.
Like that. So Ash just put it through the top arm. That's it, then pushes it over and then lines the top mount up.
Line everything roughly up in place. And it should be. Put that, just lift that up just enough studs to go through. Get to pass me the nuts, Chris. Right there. You just want to get that on just enough to hold that all in place. Go. Done.
Going up.
Back in. Just slide it through there. Put the washer back on. In and then try and slide it in. Just lining up the upper wishbone.
Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to line it up. If you have problems, you can use the bolt or even a slightly smaller Phillips screwdriver to help lever it over one side and then put the bolt in the other side.
And then just get the drop link in the right place.
As you can see, it's just sitting a little bit too high. Ash just needs to poke something in there and lever it down. Oh, there we go. That's the method I was just saying about a minute ago. Okay.
It's a case of putting the nuts on the fixings. So you've got your bottom shock bolt. It's down the wrong side, Chris.
I thought you were going to do the nut on the big bolt.
No, you did that last. 14s. Another clip would be endlessly winding a bolt.
Okay, bottom bolt and the shock done. Anti-roll bar drop link bolt done.
21mm. You should have the big washer.
Are you going to do the
Washer.
anti-roll bar?
Nope.
Right.
Do that in a minute. And then that. And then that.
Said you were doing this one last.
I lied.
You're doing it how to confuse me though.
It's not very hard, is it?
Oh.
So with this, we're just not tightening this all the way up yet, we're just tightening up so it's home. That's this all the way home now, but it's still free to move. With these wishbone bolts, you want the weight of, you want the arm in the sort of position it's going to sit before you tighten it up. So obviously I'll now use transmission jack to pop that up, but normally if you're on the ground or whatever doing it, you can just stick a jack under there just to bring the arm up a bit so it's sitting sort of relative to where it will be when it does, and then you tighten it up.
So Ash has now gone to get the jack, and he's just going to explain the reasoning why he's doing this.
Well, basically once this bolt's tightened up, these bushes are going to stay in the same place. Obviously there's twist in those bushes, but there's only sort of so much. If you tighten up when the suspension's all in its lowest position, tighten it up, those bushes are just going to stop moving, and you're going to be relying all on the twist. And then if you put the car on the ground and the arms end up going like this, you're going to have twisted a lot of tension in the bush, and you can end up with bush lock, and it's just, it can also cause uneven ride height and things like that. So
yeah.
You want any of the main wishbone bolts, you always want to be tightening up with ideally the weight of the car and the wheels, but if not, you can simulate it with this.
Just put a jack underneath the area here, just to lift it up. You can see.
You just want to go until there's almost lifting
yeah,
the car
so that's
up there. So.
And that's going to be basically more in keeping with where the arm is going to be sitting.
Yeah.
And now Ash is going to crank it up. Last bolt.
Last thing to do is remember to tighten this back up.
And there we go.
And that's the front done.
That's the front done. So, in regards to measurements, what we'll do is we have got some measurements written down, which we will, once we've done this, we may put them up in the description. So if anyone wants sort of like a normal ride height where it will go over speed bumps and bits like that, if we can remember, we'll let you guys know. But other than that, the only thing that is left to do on this corner is, once we've got all the other corners done, was we drop it down and make sure we've got the right ride height. Isn't it, Ash? Mm-hmm. Okay, on to the rear. Right, Ash.
Left, Chris.
We're doing the rear one now, aren't we?
Yes, we're at the back of the car.
So what are you gonna remove? What's the minimum that you need to remove?
It's very much the same. So we're looking at the anti-roll bar drop link again. Again, if you're doing this in a Mark II, I'd advise undoing the actually taking the anti-roll bar off there and leaving the drop links alone, because it's
Yeah, so if you are on the rears, you can get away with just undoing that bracket completely, both sides, and popping it off the studs. You lever it out, and then you can drop it down. But that's on a Mark II.
on a Mark 1 it's just easier just to do the drop link. So we're going to take the drop link off at the bottom of here. You've got the shock bolt which goes through here. On the rears it's a bit of a different one. The nut is actually captive on the backside. It's quite a common issue that captive nut snaps off. So what we always do is, from underneath there's a slot in the back that you can just get to, douse it completely in penetrating oil just to make sure that it's going to be nice and free. And also, once we've got a socket on there, we give it a good tap with a hammer just to free it up. So I'd say 9 times out of 10, if you're careful with it, you can get that bolt out fine, but there can be issues with the captive nut breaking off. So it's with that bolt you need to be careful. If you start on doing it, it starts to bind up. Spray loads of penetrating fluid on it and slowly back it off and keep going forwards and backwards until you can get it out. Don't just, if it tightens up, just He-Man it, because then you'll have the captive nut come off and it's...
Yeah, it's interesting that if that does happen to you and you're at home doing that, consult your garage or your nearest MX5 specialist.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to solve. And then once that's off, we're going to be doing the bolt that runs through the top of that holds the upper wishbone to the hub, and then it'll be again the top mount. Squirt, squirt.
That's the anti-roll bar bolt out. What do you reckon, Ash? Do you think this is going to come out? What's your gut feeling?
I think, yeah.
I think so as well. I think it's a goer.
I think having pre-loosened it probably helped. For this bolt, sometimes you just need to get just a screwdriver in there just to help it out the last bit of the way.
Time to perfection there, Ash. So as you can see now, that shock is out the lower arm and just waiting to come out.
Right, so top mounts in the boot. You've got, on the driver's side, you've got the spare wheel in the way, which we'll take out. Passenger side is a bit more involved. You've got the plate and the fuel filler neck goes down into there. So what you need to do normally on this is you've got your little plastic clips here, pull the centres out, take the carpet out of the way. So you couple in there, and then this piece of carpet will then get out of the way. There's a metal plate behind there, a couple of 10mm bolts, and then that comes all out of the way. You can then see the top mount in there. Those 10mm bolts. Oh
my god. There we go. There's one of them there. They're behind here. So there's one there. There's one in there.
And then there's one up here as well.
And then that'll come out of the way. It's just a little bit more difficult to gain access to, but it's in there.
You can also, to get yourself extra room, you can move the fuel filler neck out of the way, because those pipes still run quite close. So you can undo the 4 8mm
Is that it? That's it in there, isn't it? Yeah.
Shall I just take that off so you can see it?
There we go. So just with that cover off, you can now see through there the top mount. But as I say, you can get to it. You can see the bolts for it there. So there's one of the 14 mils, and the other one is just there. So it's only just a little bit more difficult to get to because you just have to sort of get your ratchet over those pipes.
A much easier way of doing it is if you undo this bolt here, and if you go into the fuel flap up here and undo the 4 8mm bolts in there, you can then pull the whole fuel neck out here, swing it out of the way, and then you can get your ratchet in there nice and easy.
You can, can't you?
Right, so back onto this side, spare wheel out.
So as you can see, top mount, and there's the two 14mm nuts. This one's a bit easier to get to.
So again with this, we're just going to loosen the top mount off just a turn, just because it's easier whilst the whole thing's held captive. 17mm. Up. And then 14s.
Ooh. Nearly.
This side just falls out again.
There we go. As you can see, the body of the shock is smaller. Longer springs on the back though, aren't they?
Yep. Long springs, short shocks, really. Long shocks, short springs front.
Alright, let's get this spring off then. Top mount.
Top mount.
So let's get the shock built up. So with these gas shocks, you get two, what do you call them, Ash?
Bump stops.
Bump stops. Two, come apart, come on, because they look like they're just one. So sometimes with these, depending on the application and how low we're going with, we have removed just one of these in the past. The front ones, that's the front shock, the fronts come with one. The rears come with two. So sometimes we remove this depending on how low the car's going, just because if it is sitting low you do just get that little bit more travel, but you still got a bump stop there. This car I think is having a general normal road height but slightly lower, so we're going to keep it in place on this one. I don't really like removing them, but if the car's going very low, it does give you that just a little bit more travel before it's on the bump stops all the time. Once you pop,
Still Pringles.
you can't stop.
So yeah, we're taking the smaller washer and the nut off again. Spring doing on. Again, same as the front, so you've got the D shape on there.
Yep. I actually introduced my son to Pringles, salt vinegar Pringles, at the weekend.
Taking that long.
It's quite funny to watch.
I can't believe you're so cruel to deny him Pringles up until this point.
He has only just turned 2. But I was eating some, and I gave him a salt and vinegar one, and he put it in his mouth, in his face, just sort of. They were so salty. But the thing is, it was hilarious because he sort of like winced at it, and then he just went back for more. And then to the point he had another one, and then he wasn't wincing at them. They are very salty though. Do you want the syringe?
No.
Sure.
Yep.
I can squirt some on your finger if you want.
Yeah, good luck with that.
It's coming out alright.
You're gonna dribble that out there for Roy's bench now. He'll be real happy about that.
You can wipe it on your finger for the insert. Oh, how do I know you're not going to do that? How do I know? How did I not know that you were like? It's so obvious that you were going to do that.
How are you word so much?
It's because I've been standing here so long watching you do this suspension. I've aged 5 years already.
Yeah. Retirement age now, aren't you? You got the hairdo of it.
Well, it's quite nice that you actually have a hairdo these days, rather than just your bouffon of.
It just hasn't grown yet.
No, you keep it short these days after the feedback that you got from that magazine article.
I've only had it cut once since then. Yeah, we're again, same as the fronts. The alignment is. It's easier to get it done and lined up now than it is later when you're struggling.
Hole for the bolt is there, and if we go up, it's in line with the 2 top mounts. I've got some grease on my hand you could have used for that. Mind you, if I leave that on there, I'll be able to change gear faster tonight on the way home.
No, you won't. You drive an auto.
I was. You know where I was trying to go with that, Ash?
You drive an automatic Kia.
What's the registration plate of your MX5 at the moment, Ash?
It says MX5 at the beginning.
What's the registration plate of your MX5?
At least it says Mazda on it. It doesn't say Kia.
It doesn't say Mazda though, does it?
It says Mazda on the back. It's got a Mazda logo on it. It's a Mazda. Therefore, it's correct for the application.
Isn't the last 3 letters of your number plate in this order SHE?
S, H and E also happen to be letters of my name, Chris, so...
Well, that's enough digging at each other. Let's get back to this video.
Right, baby.
What did you say?
Huh?
Alright, what?
Said I've got to go shopping at Aldi. Yeah, you want to get that roughly in place, and then you want to get those from the top. You want to get the nuts. It's a bit of a blind faff, but you pot it up and then just get one on there to hold it in place. Just move it around.
Now just doing the top mounts up. So that's inside the boot area done, isn't it?
Yeah. Right, now we need to get everything in position down here. Swing that down there. Making sure the anti-rocker drop rings in the right place. It can be a bit of a juggling act getting everything in the right place.
That's pretty much there. Just maybe need a screwdriver just to...
Yep. So put the top wishbone bolt bit back in. And then just need to come down a little bit on that. Straighten it up a little bit.
Just to note, you can only get away with what Ashlee's doing if you are just slightly off.
You only work it.
Yeah, if you can just see maybe just a mil of just sort of one side of the hole, then you'll get away with that. If you try and bash it in and the shock's not nowhere near lined up, you'll just end up ruining your bolt. Spot on, Ash.
No, it's not.
No. Was it a bit of an angle?
Drop things twisted up a bit.
Yeah, if you try and bash it through, it just bends a flat, doesn't it?
Getting just the jack in the bottom just to make sure that everything is in the position it's going to be in when you tighten everything up.
Okay, so front and rear is installed now, isn't it? So we just got to figure out the ride height now, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think what we'll do is Ashlee will get the rest of the car done, and then we'll zoom back to when the ride height is being set up and adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right, then. Well, let's Ashlee will carry on doing the other two. There's no need to go over the other two, so we'll run through the procedures of the removal and the refitting of the fronts, the removal and refitting of the rears, description on how to build the shocks up. So once Ashlee's got the other two done, then we'll come back and see just in the ride height. Okay guys, Ashlee's now got all the other shocks on and done the ride height and gone round and fitted it. So do you want to run through with what you did in your procedure of getting the shocks to where they are now?
Right, so once they're all assembled, what I was just doing was sort of winding the top collar up just so it's holding the spring just enough tension just to hold it sort of in place, and then I was using that as the base. Did that on all four of them, then put the wheels on, brought the car down, sort of looked where it sat, and then obviously go around, take your measurements, and then adjust each corner, sort of level it out and get it where you want.
So we've measured basically the measurements on this, and I've just don't take these as an exact. These will give you a guide ballpark, some figures to get them where they are. So on a stock UK MX5, the distance from the centre of the hub to the wing is 36 centimetres, and at the rear it's 34. We've done this so it's 35 centimetres at the front from the centre of the hub to the wing, and it's, hang on, my measurement is 33 at the back from
the way around.
Hey?
33 at the...
No, I've measured it.
Okay.
So it's 33 from this point here to this point here. Now obviously any bodywork that's been done in the past or anything like that will have factors in this is different, but it's just actually a ballpark figure, and it dropped the car by about 1 centimetre. So that's a good starting point. So if you're fitting these shocks, just wind them up so they've cut the springs, lower the car down, and then start your measurements from there, and you'll have to adjust each corner differently, but that'll get you in the ballpark figure of where you want to be. Alright, so thanks again to MX5 Parts for working with us on this video. You can get all your MX5 parts from there. That's it really, isn't it? Nothing to add to that?
Nope.
Okay, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next how-to. Bye bye.